Today is Friday, March 28th. We're talking about major cuts across the country's health agencies and how President Trump wants to control what's on display at the Smithsonian. Also, what to know about Vice President J.D. Vance's trip to Greenland as the Trump administration talks about a takeover. Plus, new exemptions to clean air rules, how Facebook is going back to its roots, and where Americans can see a solar eclipse this weekend. Those stories and even more news to know coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. There is about to be a massive overhaul of federal agencies that handle American healthcare, research infectious diseases, respond to outbreaks, scrutinize the safety of drugs, food, and medical devices Americans need, and a lot more. Just yesterday, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced $1.8 billion in cuts. He says 10,000 more full-time employees from the FDA, CDC, NIH, and CMS will lose their jobs. All of that's on top of about 10,000 earlier buyouts and people who quit voluntarily. So together, the cuts get rid of about a quarter of the federal health workforce. RFK Jr. says some regional offices are going to have to close and some departments will disappear. Still, he says essential health services will not be impacted, and it's really about restructuring and becoming more efficient. Well, the union that represents many HHS workers says the idea that 20,000 job cuts won't be harmful is preposterous, and it's promising to fight back. So, stay tuned. President Trump is now targeting the Smithsonian. The museum and research complex is the world's largest, and it gives a detailed picture of American history and culture. But Trump says it's been infiltrated with an anti-American ideology, so he issued an executive order. The order is vague about what the president actually thinks is anti-American ideology, but it does specifically single out the National Museum of African American History and Culture as problematic. And it says no Smithsonian exhibits and programs should divide Americans by race. The executive order also says memorials and monuments that were removed or changed in the last 5 years need to be replaced. Of course, this is all in line with the Trump administration's efforts to do away with diversity and inclusion programs. But critics say this undermines the Smithsonian's mission to offer a complete portrayal of American history, the good and the bad. Trump also has a plan to establish a national garden of American heroes. President Trump changed his mind about another cabinet pick. This time it was Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who Trump tapped to be the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. In just a few days, the Senate was finally expected to confirm her nomination, but this week, Trump asked her to stay in the House instead. He says she can make more of a difference in Congress since Republicans have a pretty slim majority. Had Stefanik become an ambassador, her seat would have been filled by a special election in New York, and it's possible a Democrat could have taken her seat. So she's staying put now. Stefanik says she's happy to be a team player, and House Speaker Mike Johnson says he'll be giving her a leadership seat. At this point, no word on who Trump may now want as ambassador to the UN. The crackdown against last year's campus protesters has impacted way more people than originally known. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio now says the U.S. has revoked at least 300 foreign student visas. He didn't have an exact number, but said, quote, "We do it every day, every time I find one of these lunatics." And Rubio says he'll keep looking every day for other visas to pull. He says the students should just be here to study and earn a degree, not become a social activist and cause chaos on American campuses. Officially, the State Department says many of the student activists who have been detained have expressed support for Hamas, which is a terror organization. But a few activists who have spoken to news outlets say they don't support Hamas, but they also don't support Israel, and they're against the cruelties of the war in Gaza from all sides. Of course, all of this is stirring up debate about the limits of the First Amendment and immigration policy, and it's one that might have to be settled in court. So, to be continued. Britain's King Charles had to be admitted to the hospital this week. The royal family says he was dealing with some side effects from a recent cancer treatment. The side effects were temporary, so he didn't have to stay in the hospital long, but the king still canceled all of his scheduled engagements for today. Buckingham Palace called it a minor bump in a road that is very much headed in the right direction. Charles will actually be meeting with President Trump soon, since last month the king invited Trump for an unprecedented second UK state visit. So far, no date has been announced. More news still ahead, but first, this episode is sponsored by Skims. As a mom and someone who works from home, I always appreciate high-quality tees, both short and long sleeve. They are wardrobe essentials for me. I love them because I can dress them up or down and feel great no matter what I'm doing. But finding that perfect fit and feel can be a challenge. And yet Skims t-shirts seem to hit the mark every time. You've heard me talk about Skims tees before, and now my newest get is the cotton jersey long sleeve t-shirt. I wore it the other day, and once again, I get the hype. There are so many dupes online, but nothing compares to the real thing. Other long sleeves ride up or bunch at the waist, but this one stays put. And as always, Skims comes through with how the tee flatters my waist and just has a great fit and feel overall. See what I mean when you shop Skims tees, as well as their ultimate bra collection and more at skims.com and Skims LA flagship on Sunset Boulevard. After you place your order, be sure to let them know we sent you, select podcast in the survey, and be sure to select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Now back to the news. Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife are going on a pretty fraught trip today. They're traveling to Greenland, as President Trump is still promising to make the territory part of the U.S. somehow. That's the case, even though at this point, Greenland is Danish and semi-autonomous. Originally, it was just going to be the vice president's wife, Usha Vance, on a longer trip. But that sparked backlash, since both Greenlanders and Danes were upset it was planned without consulting them. And they were already unhappy about the Trump administration and all the talk about a takeover, saying Greenland is not for sale. So the trip was scaled back and is now just a visit to an American military base there with the vice president and second lady. Still, protests are expected. The territory is rich with mineral resources, plus there's value in its waterways since they're a gateway to the Arctic and North Atlantic. President Trump says an American takeover would not just benefit the U.S., but that it's also needed for international security. But exactly how a takeover would happen is still up for debate. The Trump administration is now clashing with the country's largest school system. The U.S. Education Department launched an investigation into a California statewide law that bans what some people have called forced outings. It means teachers cannot be required to tell parents if a student changes their gender identity at school. But now federal officials say this violates the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, which allows parents access to their children's school records. Education Secretary Linda McMahon called the state's policy immoral, accusing schools of hiding critical information from parents. But supporters of the law argue it provides a safe space for students to explore their identity without fear. California officials also emphasize that parents can still have access to their child's records. And to be clear, parents and teachers can still talk about gender. Schools just can't be required to alert parents of a change. Either way, this isn't just a policy debate, it's a funding fight. Up to $3.4 billion in federal money could be at stake for California schools. The White House is now not only rolling back environmental regulations, it's also helping power plants and other polluters avoid the clean air rules still standing. The new EPA sent a notice out to companies this week, letting them know they can send an email and possibly get exemptions to rules first imposed under President Biden. The EPA is asking they send that email by Monday. It included a template and told them what to write in a subject line. They're seeking exemptions to rules that are meant to lower emissions of toxic chemicals like mercury, arsenic, and benzene. So environmental groups were not happy to hear polluters were getting a fast track to exemptions, but the EPA now says the exemptions are not guaranteed, and the president will still be making decisions on a case-by-case basis. Either way, this action is also expected to be challenged in court. OG Facebook is coming back, or at least that's what Meta's CEO Mark Zuckerberg says. His company is rolling out new features, starting with a new Friends tab. It's designed to show people the latest posts from their friends only, instead of recommended content from influencers, content creators, businesses, brands, and so on. Meta will still offer all of that stuff just on the regular home feed. Speaking of social media, you may have noticed even more AI on your feeds this week. That's because OpenAI added image generation capabilities to ChatGPT, even the free version of it. One growing trend has been people creating or altering images in the style of the Japanese animation house studio Ghibli. Even OpenAI CEO Sam Altman changed his profile picture to be in that style. Altman also noted how images have become so popular that the systems are getting overwhelmed. And he says ChatGPT will have to put some limits on them just temporarily. Pretty soon, free users should be able to create up to 3 images a day. This weekend, parts of the U.S. will get to see a rare partial solar eclipse. Early tomorrow morning, the moon will pass in front of the sun. But since the moon, sun, and Earth are not perfectly lined up, the sun will look like a crescent, like a piece has been taken out of it. You should be able to see it if you live in a northeastern state like Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, or New York, sometime between 6:30 and 7 a.m. tomorrow. It will also be visible in Europe, Western Africa, and Eastern Canada. If you plan to watch it, just make sure you have Eclipse glasses to protect your eyes, since remember, ordinary sunglasses won't cut it. The next time a solar eclipse will be visible in the U.S. will be 2028. Well, that's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Feel Good Friday, when we bring you one extra feel-good or positive news story before the weekend. But first, I want to talk about our sponsor. Whether my kiddo is in an eat-anything phase or buttered noodles only phase, I at least know Hiya's best-selling children's vitamins are helping to fill gaps in his diet and support his growing body and brain no matter what. I started giving him Hiya vitamins right when he turned 2, and now at 3.5 years old, he's still loving them as part of his morning routine. So much so that we've also added in Hiya's Kids Probiotic along the way. I love that Hiya is made with 0 sugar, tastes great, and that every batch is third-party tested for heavy metals, so I know they're safe and nutritious. And if you're tired of battling with your kids to eat their greens, Hiya now has Kids Daily Greens Plus Superfoods, a chocolate-flavored greens powder designed specifically for kids, packed with more than 55 whole food ingredients to support brain power, development, and digestion. Just scoop, shake, and sip with milk or any non-dairy beverage for a delicious and nutritious boost your kids will actually enjoy. We've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. To claim this deal, you must go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy. This deal is not available on their regular website. So go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. Now back to Feel Good Friday. A 9th grade English teacher has a tradition that every year moves her to tears. For 7 years now, Christina Ulmer has given each of her students a $20 bill. She just asks that they do something kind with it and then take a little video. And she says every year the teenagers show up with creativity, empathy, and generosity. For example, one girl bought $20 worth of fabric and made blankets for dogs at a local animal shelter. Another went to the dollar store and bought 20 holiday cards for people in a veteran's home. Other students used their $20 to buy toiletries and food for unhoused people. Ulmer now hands out $20 bills twice a year and combines students' videos into a montage for them to watch together. Since the project began, her students have spent more than $7,000 on acts of kindness, and the school now has a fund set up to accept donations for it. Not only that, but some students say they've been inspired to keep up the tradition, even after they've graduated. One of Ulmer's former students says the whole thing taught her you don't have to be a millionaire to make a difference, that you can do quite a bit to help with just $20 to spare. We'll be back tomorrow with our special edition Saturday episode, what you need to know about the upcoming Real ID deadline and other travel trends and tips for 2025. Then join us again Monday for another Daily News Roundup. For now, thank you so much for listening and have a great weekend.